If you're someone who is planning to build iOS application and want to include payments into their application, then in this video I will be taking you through RevenueCat, in which I will show you how the onboarding works, how it affects in the dashboard, and how the code looks. The dashboard setup I have already done in the previous video, which you can watch. I will link it in the end card and in the title as well. And after that, you can watch this setup to understand how to link it, and you can complete the whole onboarding process. So let's get into the video. So you can see this is the screen, and right now I will turn my camera off so that you can see my iPhone, and in the iPhone I will do the testing because I need user ID and password, and in my iPhone only I have linked them. So let's get into it. So you must be seeing one screen in which my phone is there. So this is the application which I'm building, and this is again RevenueCat. So let me just open it, and you can see onboarding is there. So let me just close up and open it again so that you understand what is going behind the scene. So right now you can see it is loading, it is fetching all the details. So get started, and I can choose any of the plans. Show family plan and all. I can do continue. I can do a test valid purchase or test failed purchase. I will do a test valid purchase, and you can see my purchase was done. Now, how will I know whether my purchase was done or not? I can test that in the plan. So you can see I've reloaded this and it became $7. And it is not short term. You can see it expires in 5 minutes. So it is 5 minute testing period to test whether my application has the right amount of subscription plan or not. So you can see this is the test data. I have configured all. So this is the thing which I wanted to show you. Now, if you link your real products here in the product catalog and in the App Store Connect, if you go to App Store Connect and if you link the real products and if you link that here in the RevenueCat, it will fetch it automatically. So that is the process which you have to do. And this is the flow of the onboarding, which you should actually know. And now let's see the code, which is what we are here for. So in my code, I am using Supabase and RevenueCat and again the widget to sync everything. So before I take you to the code, what I want to show you, let me just open the code widget. What I want to show you instead is that the flow which is happening, what exactly I am seeing from RevenueCat and what exactly I am seeing from the Supabase. So let's do one Excel draw. So let me just open one Excel draw for you. So this is the Excel draw. This is my iPhone. This is my Supabase. This is my RevenueCat and my iOS application. This is my iOS application. This application only talks with RevenueCat and Supabase for the external data, and for internal data it talks with Swift Store and all. So this is my Supabase. So let me just do Supabase. And this must be my, let's do this one. Let me copy paste it, and this is my RevenueCat. So these are the two APIs which I have every time which I use. Like not API, I'm using it via the SDK, which is provided by Supabase and RevenueCat itself, but I can do the API as well. So right now you can see for authentication, I use Supabase. And so let me just do this one for you. And for payments, I use payment verification. I use subscription. I use RevenueCat for subscription. So this is the thing. So let me just minimize it for you. So for subscription, I use RevenueCat, and for auth, I use Supabase. So this is how my API actually it works. So let me just show you. So when user enters, when user opens the app, if the user is already signed in, well and good. If the user is, so there are two cases. When the user opens up, already signed in. Okay, this is not what I want. I want a different arrow actually. So when a user is already signed in and when a user is already not signed in. So this is signed in, this is signed in, this is not signed in. So the flow is like that. I give them Apple login, which is again I've covered in my previous video where I've shown you how to use Supabase for Apple login or the Google login. So I have used two methods. Like if you want to use any social provider, you have to first install the Apple login. So once this is done, we move to something called checking in the RevenueCat. So this also leads to this particular thing, and here we have the RevenueCat. So this is my RevenueCat check. So let me just do this one, simplify it for you. So like this one, yep, good. And RevenueCat check. And we have in RevenueCat check, what we do, we have something called entitlements, right? We created entitlements earlier. So entitlements are nothing but the access you want to give. So for plus entitlement, what products do I have to have? So for plus, I need to have monthly plus and lifetime deal. If that product is there with that user, I give them the entitlement plus. So I check the entitlement, and for a plus entitlement, I check which product. So let me just simplify it for you. So entitlement here is plus, and I check which product. That can be monthly plus, or a lifetime deal. So I check this particular things when I'm working with RevenueCat check. So this is how RevenueCat check actually works behind the scene. So let me just do this type of thing. So this is what happens behind the scene when RevenueCat is, like my iOS is fetching from the RevenueCat. Okay, let me just. So if we don't have this case, like it can be yes or it can be no, right? So if it is yes, RevenueCat check is successful. If this is yes, it passes and shows the app. And if it is not, then it shows the onboarding here. So it checks the onboarding, and once the onboarding is done, we again return this to this particular part, and this is how we do the show the app. So this is how it actually works. So if I just do this one, move it to this one, show the app, and move this one to this one, and this one to this one, I think this is easy for you now to really understand what is going behind the scene. So if this is yes, we show the app, and if this is no, we show the onboarding. So this is how it actually works, the RevenueCat check, and again we do onboarding and we do yes, and this is how we show the app. So this is how it happens when user opens the application. If it is signed in, if it is not signed in, if it is not signed in, we show Apple login, Google login. If it is not, so we show RevenueCat check, and if it is no, onboarding, and then entitlement plus, and then shows the app. So this is how it works behind the scene. So now let's see the code. So the main important part which is with us is the entry point. So right now the content view is the entry point. Here every check is happening, everything. So RevenueCat also allows something called anonymous ID. So for example, if there was no Supabase, when there was no Supabase, then you can like you can allow, okay, you can allow subscription using anonymous ID. So you can actually allow anonymous ID, but if app deleted or reset, then ID is lost. So this is what actually happens. So this is actually a really great problem, and that's why you need to sync. So to resolve, okay. So okay, this to resolve, what you do? To resolve, you actually do this. You sync the ID with the user ID from auth. So what happens? You take the subscription, and after taking the subscription, you just link that particular ID to user ID of the auth table. And after you have user ID and sync, like the anonymous ID are linked, and whenever you want to check the subscription status, you call the user ID and then the anonymous ID. So this actually creates friction. So in the table, like this is one table, then you must have one user ID here, user ID for auth, and you have the anonymous ID. So I'm doing any ID. So you have user ID and any ID. This is important for RevenueCat. This is user specific. So let me just do this one. So this is the two things which you have to do. Like this actually happens behind the scene. This is how generally people work. But if you're using Supabase, and also what is the next flow is that the flow which we are working on, and that is this particular flow. The user opens the application, signed in or not signed in, Apple sign in, RevenueCat check, no onboarding, and if yes, then check the entitlements, then show the app. So what happens is that whenever this particular user signs up, they get the user ID. If they get the user ID, we pass this user ID to onboarding. Okay, sorry. If we get this one, we pass this to onboarding, and we pass this onboarding, this particular part, and we pass this to RevenueCat. So RevenueCat knows, okay, this Supabase user ID is linked, and we should register this user ID rather than the anonymous ID. So it gets the priority, and that user ID gets particular subscription. Now that is linked. Now every time the application is opened, what happens is that it checks the user ID from the database, and that user ID passes to RevenueCat, and it is done. So you are skipping two database call in this particular implementation. So this is actually an optimized method. It like creates less confusion as well, and it is better for the long term. And now let's see the code for which we are really here. Now you have understood of what is going behind the scene and how we are working on, and let's understand what is going. So you can see for the content view, this is our main entry point, and you can see is checking auth. So we check the auth, check initial auth state. If there is initial auth, well and good. Current user we get from the Supabase user. We check the, like we set up with user ID. You can see the current user ID is passed to RevenueCat manager. Is RevenueCat setup? We pass it to true. So this is how check initial auth state. If it is done, else if it is not authenticated, we show the user sign-in page, the auth view. So this is we show. So you can see that on auth view and on receive notification. So when auth view has done its work, it sends the notification, yeah, it is done, and it's passed the user ID from the notification. It works in the internet. And then we have a background task. It again setups the user ID with RevenueCat user ID. And if there is no RevenueCat setup, we do the RevenueCat setup. And if it is not RevenueCat manager is not subscribed, then we do onboarding view and we show everything. And in the end, we show the subscription paywall. So this is the subscription paywall, which you can see how it is linked. It is very simple. We do offering, which we have the current offering, which you can see. This is our default offering. So you know, plus monthly is our default offering. You can see that this is our default offering and it will be loaded here. So paywall equals to offering. And if we had needed different offering, we would have named that particular offering here. And we will show this particular load offerings. And this is how it works behind the scene. Now you know the proper context, how authentication works, how you are passing it to RevenueCat, and how you are like writing the paywall. So there are a lot of things. So you can see this is the RevenueCat manager, which is the most important part. Here you can see I am giving the entitlement ID, which is hard coded again. And entitlement ID can be hard coded because you want to give access to some particular entitlement user only. So you can create one entitlement as free entitlement. You can create something called as plus entitlement. The free entitlement is someone who has not bought anything, and the plus is someone who has bought us product related to that particular entitlement. So this is how it actually works. Set up with user ID. You can see the functions are written. I will link this GitHub repository, so that's why I'm not getting too much into the code, but I've already made you understand what is going behind the scenes so that you can easily code it by asking AI to do the heavy lifting. So you can see how we are getting the customer info, how we are checking whether the customer is subscribed or not, and if not, how to load offerings and all. So these are all defined here. So this is how whatever related to RevenueCat, the functions, what is going behind the scene, it is defined in RevenueCat manager. And we have RevenueCat config where we give the API key and all. So you can see I'm giving public test API key. And then we have RevenueCat manager. So these are the two files which you have to configure first. Then you have to configure the paywall. So once you have configured 3 files, now you have to work on the content view and the auth view. And you are good to go. But again, you need to configure something called app view because you need to pass something called global state. And in global state, we have RevenueCat manager. So RevenueCat manager should be accessible to profile view, auth view, so that it is on top of everyone. Everyone has the context of the global object. So that's why we have the environment object. And it listens to all changes and all, and you can see how it works. So you can see RevenueCat manager is shared here. And this is the update like app view, auth view, content view, paywall, and the RevenueCat config and the RevenueCat manager. You need these things to perform the payments and the onboarding. And once you link the real object, then it is again very easy. So this is the thing which I wanted to update. I know it took a long time, but this is what you actually needed, and I hope it helps you. So I will see you in the next video. Till then, take care and bye.